Welcome to episode 3 of the Skyns podcast.
Yeah, welcome.
I am Kyle Ingram, aka Kingram, aka I am Kingram on Instagram.
And I'm Nikita, also known as La Namra on social media, Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. And we are happy to be back for another episode. This is episode 3.
Yes.
Can't believe this is just 3.
Yes.
In the bag.
3 in the bag. We're knocking these babies out.
We gonna knock them out till it can't knock them out no more.
And then we're gonna get right back to it. She's talking about being pregnant, and when the baby gets here, we're gonna take a break. But then we're gonna get right back. But that we still got months, so make sure you subscribe now.
Yes.
Also follow us at Skyns Music on Instagram. We went live.
We did.
Actually, I think it was actually on mine.
We went live on your Instagram. Right. We were trying to go live on YouTube, but
our page was too new. We're new.
Yeah.
So we had not done that.
So get in.
Yeah, get in now.
Fall is still early.
So we went live. That was last week.
I think so. Yeah.
We went live last week to discuss Derrick Jaxn.
Derrick Jaxn. Action Jackson.
And it was a very fun conversation we had. Our producer, Ryan got the bread, popped in the live and brought in the Kevin Samuels energy. Ryan got a cam today. Let's everyone look at Ryan real quick.
Yeah.
We got Ryan on
round
cam.
Round of applause for the producer.
Yeah. They can't hear you. Turn it up. So yeah, shout out to Manson Media for having us here.
Yes. And also follow Manson Media on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's Manson Media LLC.
Yep, that's right.
Yep.
But anyway, let's get back to this Derrick Jaxn thing. So we talked about it, and I'll give you a quick overview of what my particular stance was. I thought that it was all kind of a setup to promote his book and rebrand and expand the brand.
What about people who don't know who Derrick Jaxn is and what you're talking about?
Well, at this point, I don't think they know. But yes, you do that.
I'm sure that they know because this man has gotten so much coverage. I saw a clip from ET Canada.
Yeah.
Covering this dude.
Right.
How?
This is what I'm saying. I would expect that they would have heard this. But yes.
If you've been living under a rock, Derrick Jaxn is a self-proclaimed
relationship guru.
No. He says he's a self-love ambassador.
Well, he changed.
Apparently that's what he's been calling himself to escape from the whole relationship expert or whatever. But he's a self-love ambassador who gives relationship advice mostly to women. His audience would obviously be mostly black women. He's a black man, pretty attractive to look at for most people, I guess, by most standards.
Horny man.
And he's been on the internet for about 10 years now doing this thing, giving advice. And recently it came out that he cheated on his wife.
Cheated.
He's
a serial cheater. He was never faithful, apparently. This is what I want to talk about this because so that is the story. If you haven't heard about Derrick Jaxn, I don't know where you've been, but we went live and it had just kind of come out, been out a couple days.
It was early up in the mix.
It was early. So my initial thought was that the timing was weird. They had just put this book out talking about Healing Without Hurting Each Other was the title of it.
Which together without hurting each other.
I was like, what amazing timing to come out with this scandal and talk about getting back together and how they're together now and they had time apart. Right. And he had this really super. Here's why it went viral, because I had heard that he was cheating before, but when he brought his wife out and she looked like a hostage, that's when everyone said, "What's going on?" Like he was, he was gripping her hand. And they did a couple different lives then. So that's when we had came in and did our live and talked about it. And I had that assumption, or I made that. That's what I was thinking. The next day, he does a video where he.
The next day he does a video doing the split screen reaction to his confession with the wife present. His PR
and I
confession.
Was like,
in third person again, because when he apologized with the wife and holding the hand and doing this thing, he was speaking in third person there as well.
Right.
But when he did this split screen reaction, this took it to a whole other level because everybody's like,
it was Inception levels. I was like, yo, this dude knows no limits.
The narcissism of it all.
The audacity. I could not believe. I said the audacity of this dude. He is going to break, because like, this is one of the things, if you never follow him, this is one of the things he would do. He would break down videos of, you know, like I think he did one with like Plies, like, you know, anybody was talking about women or talking about their relationships, he would video breakdown of what they were saying and showing how they were wrong. So he did one with himself, but not as himself, but as himself breaking down himself.
And he says, and just so you know, I'm going to speak in third person.
Right. So that then went crazy. Then there was all these other videos and there's all this new information that came out.
You know that I do little...
like Nikita does these deep dives on things when she is interested in it. Like, so she started finding out all this other information.
One thing that fascinates me a little bit is narcissists who have like this public following, a public persona. Like that chick from, what was it? Theranos? I don't know if you heard of that I forget her name. Yeah. The blonde chick who did like one semester at Yale or something like that, and then opened up a whole biotech company and got these millions of dollars. I did a deep dive on her. Derrick Jaxn, I had to do the deep dive because I was like, this man, the level of narcissism here is like astronomical.
Yeah.
So when I started doing my deep dive, all types of things come up, including the fact that review of himself that he did in a split screen was filmed outside, allegedly was filmed outside one of the mistress's house.
Yep.
So in one of the interviews that was done with one of the women, she says, the house in the art with the arches that you see in the background of all his videos when he's sitting in the car, that's my house that he's sitting outside of. And this fool filmed his reaction to himself in 2021, because apparently this cheating went on in 2020. But also there's allegedly more information that came out that as recently as earlier in March, he had sexual contact, allegedly, with one of these women.
Right.
One of these women got pregnant, had an abortion.
There's all these, so all this new information came out. Like, it wasn't, so, you know, a lot of people thought that initially he was cheating, or maybe they were separated, but really what it was is this dude was just cheating forever. Like,
he cheated while she was pregnant, obviously, because none of them kids at more than 10 years old.
Right.
It's just
and then
ridiculous.
So then right, we looked at the wife's page. Like, because of this video, she started getting a lot more attention, and she did a couple of videos on her own. And
with her helmet of salvation.
Whoa, there's a lot going on there. She has, you know.
So I don't want to, and this is something I said on a live as well. Like, I don't like the fact that people were attacking her.
Right.
Because I feel like to some degree she is a victim in the situation.
Right.
And when you look at her Instagram page, this lady has like a lot of trauma in her past, and she isn't very secure in herself based on things she said. And again, with the deep diving that I did, apparently she has a history of like the women that he cheated with, going on their page, like being obsessive about seeing who these women are.
She's talking about seeing their naked bodies, though.
And this is the other thing. I you know, the other reports and stuff that are out there, and based on her Instagram post, it seems like at some point, allegedly, that there may have been, well, at least what I took from it is that there might have been some kind of situation where there was threesoming, or
I don't know what was going on, but she's talking about, she was out here talking about looking at the women that
looking at their naked body,
looking at how wet they were.
And
like, how was she, like, what's going on? Like, so in my mind, I'm thinking there's so much other stuff happening here that we are just not aware of.
And it's so much. And looking at her, like, sitting there with him dragging her hand all over the place like a freaking controller for a game or something.
Right. She
just looked devoid of any life in her eyes. But one thing that we did talk about on the live was the fact that you what did you think about how she came out and how she'd be perceived, and Derrick letting her?
Oh, I mean, I talked about on the live that, you know, he, over the course of 10 years, has built up like 1 million plus followers on Instagram. He's been able to sell books. He understands how media works. He knows how to make a presentation. He knows how to present. And he knew that her coming out there like that would make how she would be received. Like that was, he set her up. Like he set her up to fail. Like she was not going to come out looking, you know, she didn't look her best. I don't think. I think that she you know, she could have looked better. She looked victimized. Like people are talking about how she looks defeated and how her body language, and part of that has to do with, you know, what she's wearing and just her overall demeanor. There's so many things he could have done that if he really wanted to make it seem like their relationship was healthy, or make it seem like, you know, she was happy.
Right.
But he didn't do that, and I think that was intentional.
So and a lot of people have made the point that he's, even the body language, how he's sitting with his shoulder behind hers, but yet still like leading her hand and all that stuff. He's using her as a shield.
They were calling her a puppet.
Right. But it basically looked like he was just dragging her all over the place. Right. And maybe that is the dynamic in the relationship. Who knows? But you know, using her as a shield, a lot of black women have said, like, after you do all this and nobody knew that I existed, you'd have to come out here by yourself.
So, you know,
take the heat. Why am I coming out here to sit down for people to look at me?
Because he's been in social media for 10 years and nobody ever knew he was married.
Right.
Which is crazy. If you're going to be a relationship guru, expert, self-love, mediator, I don't know, whatever you want to call yourself, if you're talking about that stuff, people should know that what your history is.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he pops up with this wife he's been with for years. And
so the other dynamic in this that we talked about a little bit was the religion factor.
So at the time, right, I had said you can't just use religion as a shield. Like he had talked about, or you can't really use it as a crutch. You can't just all of a sudden be like, oh, you know, well, I rededicated my life and now everything's good, which is how I read it. But as more information came out, he's been going to this, you know, mega church with one of them preachers is out here slapping people with jackets. I don't know if you ever seen them clips where it actually, no, it was the preacher that said the
fellatio demon.
Yeah, the fellatio demon. He's like, you have the demon the fellatio demon. He's trying to like will it out of this woman. It's crazy. He's at one of these churches that it's like.
And how do we find that out? Ryan Davis.
He said, "Nigga, is that Derrick Jaxn?" I was like, "Yo," he was in one of those clips, like one of those viral clips of like, "Yo, what kind of church is this?" That's the church that they go to, and that's how they're talking. They're like, she's talking like she's brainwashed. Like, you know, everyone was talking about her.
She's heavy into the religion, heavy into the Christianity.
And that can be dangerous, right? Like
it is.
Any believing too heavily in any faith can be dangerous. It's not believing in it, but like once you no longer are thinking for yourself and you're just accepting anything as the word of God, like that's not a good balance.
Yeah, the one thing for me with all of this was the religion aspect of it, just using religion as an excuse.
Yeah.
To like, oh, well, I can do this and now I've repented and now everybody, I am forgiven. And sure, if you are Christian, you don't get to determine as a human what forgiveness is. But it's like in that video, the initial video with him and her, the insinuation I got was that they've been taking counseling from religious leaders and not necessarily
they need actual
secular, like a psychiatrist,
they need
psychologist, a marriage counselor that is separate from
she
the
needs
church.
Actual therapy based on the post she was like things she was posting and just all the things she's been saying on social media. I'm no expert. That is not my, but if she was my friend, I'd be like, hey, go get a, and
after
see some
so
therapy.
many years, like how can you feel good about yourself in a marriage with someone who is repeatedly cheating on you years and years and years? Like, what does that do to your self-esteem?
and they say they've moved past it, and yet this man does another video outside of one of them mistresses' house. But I've been telling y'all for years Derrick Jaxn was whack. I've been saying this to all the black women I know. Most men been saying he whack. Cameron just posted today on his Instagram, like telling you, like, he been telling everybody. Everybody knows. I don't know how y'all couldn't see that. It's interesting
because so many men, I think the dangerous and the other thing, like, everybody's talking about the relationship stuff, like his actual relationship, but also the damage that he has done, because he's put batteries in the back of men who do this whole, like, you're a simp. Simping is this.
Yeah, they call him King Simp.
Right.
Which, whatever.
So
I just think he's corny. Like, it wasn't even simping. Like, it wasn't even like the stuff he was saying was just, and it wasn't even the stuff he was saying. It's just his whole presentation. Why are you giving advice to women?
Right. That's another thing that I do not like. I do not like this idea of men profiting off of telling women what to do and how to feel and all this stuff. And along this line, another thing that I mentioned in the live was the dominatrix, the video that we watched. Right. I forget her name now, pregnancy brain. But one great point, excellent point that she made was that you really have to, as a woman, whether you're in the church or not, you cannot let religion, whatever, society dictate to you what you should like, who you should be involved with, the things that you should allow, settle for, whatever, because you're going to be getting into a relationship with a man who is going to.
Well, her point was that it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. That if you're gonna
it was the idea of submission.
The idea of submission,
right,
is like, because that's a common thread in that religion uses, that women are supposed to submit
to their men.
But I was laughing because she said I'm a dominatrix like 7 times in 10 minutes, and I get it, but I was like, all right, I understand. Yes, you're dominating, but she was saying it because she wanted to point out that she is the dominant, she is the leader in her relationships. Although I don't think you have to be a dominatrix to be the leader in your relationships. I think there's a lot of relationships where women there's usually
a dynamic in hetero situations where it's like there's somebody who's a little bit more dominant. There's usually
somebody who's more dominant, but I'm saying it doesn't have to be as extreme as being a dominatrix,
but I think
or
her point,
as being
but even when it is that extreme, the point is that it takes a lot to lead.
No, her point was, if you're going to be the leader, you have to earn the trust of whoever you're leading.
And that submission is no light thing to play with.
It's not a light thing, and it's not something that you should give away freely or give away just because
the church says so.
The church or because of the gender. That's what her main thing. Like, you shouldn't just because you're a woman doesn't mean you should just submit to men. That was her main point. And in a lot of ways, I agree. I feel like you can't just submit to anybody. Like, you should have to prove your worth. If you should have to want to follow. If you're going to follow somebody, they should have to prove that you're going to follow. And if you're going to lead somebody, you got to prove that your leadership is worth following.
Yes.
Like, you can't just be like, yo, I'm a man, follow me. Like, that's crazy. That don't make no sense to me.
Yes.
Like, logically, it makes no sense.
And I love the point that she made about, you have to see someone in tough situations, how they handle crisis, how they handle pressure. Are they able to make good decisions when the pressure is hot?
So,
when things are not okay.
I can see Ryan over there breathing, and I know there's a lot of guys out there that are thinking. We
kind of touched on this.
We did, but I know there's a lot of guys out there thinking, "Oh, he's Prince simp." Like, but one, I don't care. But also, I break everything down to sports, right? If you're on a team, if you're playing basketball, part of the thing with gelling, like when they always talk about all these superstars get together, they have to figure out who's going to get the last shot. Who's going to be the leader? Who's going to be that? And you have to earn that. That comes like, you don't like, you have to play together. You have to figure that out. And that's no different than a relationship in my mind. Like, I have this, epiphany that people have relationships where they view it as competitive and they're trying to, dominate the other person, when really it's a companionship. It's more teamwork. And while you might be a leader, it's not like oppressive. It's like, all right, this is what my skill is. Let me do this.
And if you're playing on a team, then you know, well, I'm better at jump shots.
Right.
You're better at free throws, whatever.
Right. As great as Shaquille O'Neal was, in those high pressure situations, Kobe had the ball because he was a better ball handler. He was more agile. He could score from multiple levels. So he had the ball at the end of the games. Now that's just how it works. Why are you over there rolling your eyes?
Ryan is so stressed.
Why are you stressing?
Ryan is like this.
What's stressing you out? Turn your mic up.
It's up. What the best WNBA player is worse than the worst NBA player?
We're talking about life.
I'm just using your.
I'm talking about team sports. Like
using your sports example.
You're not using. No. That is not the same thing. That
is very sexist.
That is not the same thing.
Hold on. See,
that's not the same thing.
Hold on. I gotta address this.
That's not the same thing at all.
I gotta address this.
That is completely different.
Because it's sexist to say that women are worse at basketball.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's not what the point that we're making is.
About what I said.
The point that we're making is, if you're in a we're talking about heterosexual relations because that's where we are. That's what we're at. That's what we identify. Okay, if you're in a heterosexual relationship as a man and a woman, there are things that he's going to be better at. Decision making.
It's not about gender. Like can most WNBA? No, listen. It's not about can WNBA players dunk. They're not in the same league. We're in the same league. We're in life together. We're on the same team. Now that's the sexist part. That right there is the sexist part. How are you not in the same league?
In the same league
in life?
If we're on the same team, building a life together. This is what I'm saying.
Like the way, like you can't say, if I'm talking about a sports team, you can't even understand that relationships are the team. I'm not saying WNBA, NBA. I'm saying we're in the league together. Me and her are in the team together. We bring different assets. We have different roles.
Ryan is so stressed out.
I don't know why that's like. I don't know why that bothers men.
Because you're not accepting.
How's that not accepting reality?
Accepting reality. We know that we're different. We know that we have different strengths.
Men are better at certain things than women are.
And women are better at certain things than men.
No.
If you want to go there.
No.
Women are.
I disagree.
Women are better at certain things than men.
I disagree. No, it is individual. There are some women who are much better at budgeting.
Yes.
There are some women who are. There are some men who are much better at cooking. Yes. There are some women who are much better at creating businesses. Like it's individual.
Sexism, and even in that is women are doing most of the cooking at home, but men have most of the professional careers and making most of the money in the cooking.
You know why
with a cooking career. Why is that? Why is that?
Women when they have kids, it messes up their career. That's the way of life.
This is
so the women have kids by themselves and the men don't.
That is the worst example.
What is it? Artificial insemination?
You have to physically have the child, and normally women are the primary caretaker. So if you raise your child to first grade, how old? So that's 5 years that you're out of your career field.
Okay, if your spouse, your husband, your partner also decides to take up half of that slack. People defer. People assume that caregiving.
Go back to work the next week. No,
we're not. That's not. No. But there are women who are going back to work within 2 months because they don't have a choice.
But they don't want to do that.
Yeah,
some do.
But they don't have a choice.
Some do.
It depends on what you're doing.
They don't have a choice, but they're doing it and they're making it work.
Exactly.
But if they have the support.
But that's not the natural way of being. And if they would have it their way, most women would not choose to do that.
The natural way of being. So you're telling me taking 5 years off is the natural way of being?
I don't think that's.
What do most women do when they have a child?
What is natural about any? Like, what do you mean?
What do most women do when they have a child?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do most people do when they have a kid? It changes. If you're doing it right, if you're doing it right, it changes everybody's life.
Right.
It changes everyone's life. It changes the woman's life more specifically and more dramatically.
Yes, but
it can.
When you're talking about a person being out of their career,
have the baby, it doesn't come out.
Yes, we understand that, but you're also the dad. Past a certain point in the child's development, There are places where the dad is able to pick up more of the slack. The child is less dependent on the mother, where they're eating more solid food.
6 months?
For generally speaking, around 6 months to a year.
What are you talking about? I'm watching it now.
6 months to a year. Okay.
Like, yo, this is an idea that's perpetuated by the patriarchal society. Like, that's a patriarchal idea. Bro.
Okay, so if it is that women need those 5 years off, why aren't we getting the unlimited maternity leave?
No
I
way.
agree that they should have that.
But men should also have paternity leave too.
Right.
Sure.
Because we can't do it by ourselves. We didn't make the baby by ourselves. We need the support.
If you're talking about the natural order of things, then it's supposed
men need to be present.
There should be a village.
You're lucky I have to switch the camera. I can't focus.
Anyway, we don't want to spend the whole show arguing with Ryan.
No, we don't. But the question that would accompany the Derrick Jaxn thing is emotional intelligence simping?
Yes.
Ryan says yes.
What a dumb thing to say. Emotional is it? So this is an idea that I've been because based on conversation with you and based on watching men just on the internet, they feel like emotional intelligence is simping, and
it's two different things. Because I don't think what people are referring to as a simp is necessarily an emotionally intelligent person.
Emotional intelligence is not simping. I'm just being.
I know you're being ridiculous.
Women on a pedestal above men is simping. That's the definition.
Okay.
Valuing women above yourself or above men is simping.
I don't think any individual should value anyone
right.
higher than themselves. First of all, like
so
you come first.
Last week you said women are the prize, which puts you above. You
Honey, we are.
And what was my response?
We add
I
to
said,
your life.
I said, so are we. That's how it is.
Okay, so everything is everything then. Let's just say generic.
No, it's not generic. It's not.
We all deserve a first place.
No, everyone.
We're all the best.
Everyone doesn't deserve anything.
It's relative,
though. No, it's individual.
Right.
Kyle, we all scored 10 points.
You're number one.
There's no
person who is
no. I'm not saying that at all.
You're better than anybody. We're all the same. We're all equal. But we all love each other the same amount. There's no difference.
Ryan.
That's not what I said at all.
Your number one might be someone else's number 15.
What I'm saying is,
and vice
it's
versa.
Individual.
Right.
You can't just say, "Oh, men are better." No, look at the man. Look at that man. Some of y'all are bums. Some of y'all.
That man.
Look at that man. Some of y'all are bums. Some women are bums.
Yes.
It is individual.
This is true.
It's like everyone wants to generalize, and that was my problem with Derrick Jaxn in the first place. Stop making all these general statements and general assumptions. You cannot generalize.
There
are things that some people value more than others,
and that varies from person to person.
It's individual. There is no formula. There is no system. People are going to find what they want to find.
Listen, people are toxic in different ways. People have great qualities and those differ from person to person. Like, you just can't just say, oh, everybody has this thing going on for them or whatever. No, yes. So love your statistics.
This actually brings me to the next subject, right? Because, we want to talk about Quavo and Saweetie. Right. So in a lot of ways, people think that they were relationship goals, and Quavo was cool because he was a rapper and everything's like. But if you look at the stats, right?
They did their little video and it was so cute.
If you look at the stats of them, they seem like they're quote unquote high value, right?
Your friend loves to say that, right?
They're quote unquote, but you can't. That's not like how you can.
Trend.
You can't base anything off that. It's about, this is where emotional intelligence comes in, because you can have all the money, you could look great, you could be in shape, you could, but if you don't have the ability to make real connection and to understand what your partner needs and to have a desire to do that, your relationships are going to fail. Like, it's about emotional intelligence if you want to have long lasting bonds.
Right.
And you know, when I looked at that, she hates the idea of relationship goals.
I hate it so much.
Like she hates when people put relationships on pedestals. She hates it.
Yes, and I hate when people comment that under our.
So everybody go right now in the comments and drop relationship goals. No. Hashtag relationship goals under Skyns.
No,
just to get on her nerves.
No, please don't. Please
Everyone
don't.
write it.
You should not be encouraging people to get on my nerves while I'm pregnant. My nerves are very short
common
right now.
Relationship goals.
Anyhow. But yeah, like I don't like this idea of relationship goals because you are just seeing what people are, especially in the age of social media, you're just seeing what people are putting out to the public. You're just seeing their highlight reel, as people like to say. Right. These nice curated, especially for celebrities.
So let's jump back.
These are well curated.
You want to tell them what happened there? Because I just
okay. So with Quavo and Saweetie, I hope I'm saying that right.
So. I'm not sure.
Saweetie, whatever you want to call it.
She makes great music though. They both do.
So a video came out a couple of days ago of them having an altercation in an elevator.
Them elevators be dangerous for y'all rappers, boy.
Celebrities love elevator.
We taking the stairs everywhere we go. You ain't gonna catch me on no elevator.
Oh my gosh. So they had this altercation in the elevator, and I think someone said that it was at Saweetie's apartment or something like that.
That's what I heard.
And so basically what happened, well, I don't want, to me, what it looked like was...
Let's say what happened.
It looked like, okay, so in the beginning of the video, there's two versions of the video out.
Tell them the long one. Forget the short one.
Right. The long one, we see as the elevator opens, Saweetie smacks Quavo in the face. Mm-hmm. She puts hands on him and tries to grab his orange case, the Call of Duty case or whatever. And he has it in the elevator. She reaches in to grab it. It looks like she's going to fling it or something like that. We don't know what she's going to do. He tries to get it away from her. She isn't really letting go. And he ends up just getting onto the elevator and flinging her into the side of the elevator.
Right.
They scuffle for a little bit in there. She's supposedly hurt or winded or whatever the case may be. She stays on the ground and he pushes the button for the elevator to go down. When he gets down there, there's a dude on the first floor, wherever they went.
This is not funny, but that dude cracked me up.
The dude just stood there.
He just stood there like the door opened and he looked in there. And he didn't even move. Like he took no steps. Like I wish I could see his face because I imagine he's just like shaking his head.
And
like,
the door opens,
not
so
getting on there.
Quavo kind of turns his back.
Quavo tried to make space for him. Like he moved the bag and he stepped in a little bit. And the dude's like, nah, I'm not getting in this.
Right. And he doesn't get in. And Quavo presses the button to go back up. And they go back up. He puts the Call of Duty thing in the elevator door to hold it until Saweetie gets up. He doesn't help her up or anything. But when she gets up, her slippers are out in her slides are out in the hallway. Right. And then the video cuts off. We don't know if he goes with her. We don't know if he gets back in, whatever. We don't know. So I looked at that video and, like people were saying prior to that relationship goals.
Yeah, they loved them.
They look so cute.
They loved them as a couple.
Video on one of them magazines that does these interviews on YouTube where like the couples have to.
He bought her a car and stuff and.
Right, but this interview, I think people really love this one because they had to answer all these trivia questions about each other, and he got all but one right for Saweetie, and people don't really get that high of a grade or whatever on those questions. So people are like, oh my god, he knows her. Oh my god, that's so sweet. He knows everything about her. I'm like, all right, okay, it was cute. But apparently this video in the elevator is from last year. We're now finding out about it.
I didn't know that. So, the point is, you just never know what people are going. You don't you
know what's happening.
You can have a cute
doors.
You can have a cute video where you guess all the answers right. You can buy someone a car. You can buy them the Birkin bags or whatever y'all think is cool. But that does not mean it's a healthy relationship.
Right.
Healthy relationships are healthy relationships, and healthy relationships can look different for different people. Now, abuse. I'm not talking about physical abuse. That's not what I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there are different, some people might not mind not working and they might enjoy staying at home. They might find more purpose in that. Some people might feel like they need to go to work to have purpose. You can have all different types of relationship structures as long as you have communicated with your partner and you guys are both happy in what you're communicating. That to me is a healthy relationship. You can have a healthy relationship and not know what your person's favorite food is. I mean, I don't know how, but I think it's possible.
Change.
Right.
That's the other thing. Like, people have this idea, and especially now, I guess with social media, like you see it a lot with like younger people in the
everybody's looking for
early
models.
20s, thinks, and they're like, people have this thing that everything just stays static. You change as a person.
Right.
So your relationship is going to change. It's a dynamic thing. You have two people who are constantly growing, changing. What you like might change next week,
right,
next year, what you're into, what your goals are. So it's like you're constantly, I think I said this last time too, it's like a readjustment, recalibrating all the time.
Yeah.
You have to check in, you have to communicate, and
you're gonna repeat the truth a lot. That's what happens.
But as for Quavo and Saweetie,
when things are true, you just keep saying them.
They are. The other thing you have to bear in mind is that they're young. They're like their early 20s.
How old is Quavo?
Quavo might be older than she is. She's definitely younger.
Yeah.
And I have not been wanted to put my hands on a dude or anything like that.
Right.
Like, not in a fight or anything, like in jest, maybe like ha 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 or something.
Right.
But I know that for some people, that is normal in their framework, right? Like stuff they've seen or things that they think is okay to do, put hands on or be aggressive or whatever, whether male or female, whether man or woman.
Stop it.
What?
All right, let me ask this. How do you feel about double standards? Because if he punched her in the face,
this is what I'm getting to. This is why I'm not absolving her of any responsibility. I'm saying, yes, she was wrong. She was wrong. She was wrong. She was wrong. He doesn't want to press charges.
Do you think the degree of punishment is proper when women put their hands on men versus if a man put hands on a woman? Is a double standard okay or is it not okay? Should it be treated the same like everything else? Oh, we're all the same. Let's get the trophies. Let's get the same trophies for everybody.
What trophies?
We're all the same people. We all should be treated exactly the same. Should she go to jail? Should she be treated that way? Or is there a double standard?
Do men go to jail for slapping women?
Yeah.
Did Ray Rice go to jail? No.
He lost his career.
He didn't go to jail. But I'm saying
he didn't go to jail.
Gonna be able to put out a new song.
She probably will.
Ray Rice could have put out a song.
No, Ray Rice got kicked out the league. Stop this.
Which he probably should have.
There's a lot of.
No.
I'm not making excuses. I'm saying. You're saying should she go to jail? I'm like, there's guys that hit women all the time and don't go to jail.
Yeah.
Abuse. First of all, if you look at abuse statistics, men are much more likely to hit women
and very underreported. Actually.
And it's super not reported. Yeah.
I'm asking you the question: is there a double standard? Is a double standard acceptable or not? And let's use this situation.
If we are using this situation,
because you guys damn well know that if he had struck her,
she'd have to
it would be a way different reaction. And let's not play.
Okay,
that it would be different.
If he had struck her, she would still have to press charges.
She'd have to press charges. It might not be different
still have
at
to
all.
Press charges.
This was a year ago.
So do you think the impact on his career would be the same versus the impact on her career if he struck her on camera versus her striking him?
That would not be the same.
So we can accept that there's a double standard.
Possibly.
Can we at least acknowledge the reality there's a double standard?
No, they're definitely. Yeah, they're sure.
So if you want to say that.
So then let's draw this bigger. Is a double standard acceptable or not?
Are you generalize it for everything? Or just
either
listen.
Hold on. Either we get treated exactly the same.
So listen.
Or there are different standards.
Here's the thing about this. Hold on one second. Here's the thing about this idea of there's a double standard. men are hitting women more and not going to
don't
jail.
know that.
No, statistically we
know that.
do.
It's about underreported. Men don't.
I'm not talking about reporting it.
Them.
I'm not talking about reporting it. I'm talking about what is reported, what is unreported, what is more dangerous, where there's less charges pressed against men who are doing it. So the double standard goes against women. What are you talking about?
And also,
No, it doesn't.
How is it?
Men in those situations of domestic violence where men are
Turn their heads
physically
all that all the
abusing
time.
women, the outcome is more so that men are harming women more fatally.
Yeah,
than
there's more.
women
It's
are
more. It's
harming
more
men.
dramatic.
Maybe because men and women are different. Men are stronger, so they.
No, it's
shouldn't
more. It's
strike
long.
women.
It starts off small. If you look at any history of abuse, if you look at any of the statistics, it starts off with small infractions that grows and grows and grows until it becomes there. So
You guys aren't talking about my question.
No, you're trying to make a larger point with this one incident, but really the double standard is you're talking about if it was visualized, how would it hurt their careers? Yes, there's an idea that men shouldn't hit women, which I agree
Do
with.
you
Yes.
agree with that or not?
I don't think that anyone should hit anybody. My grandmom
hold on.
told me
Is it
if
worse?
a woman hits you, you hit her back. So if you put hands on, then it's fair game.
Okay,
that's
Kyle,
what
so
some
you
people.
punch a girl in the face.
I'm not. This is a mentality that's out there, right?
You're not telling the truth.
And this is what.
How am I not telling the truth? That is the
what we're
truth.
saying.
Being honest, because what you're saying, like, so it's the same if a woman hits a man versus a man.
If
hitting a woman.
no, well, first
Is
of
that
all,
the same thing?
here's the thing: if you put your hands,
the question.
if you put your hands on somebody, you are open to retaliation.
I agree with
you
that.
should defend yourself. So I do not think that
men should ever strike women because we're stronger. You shouldn't do it. That's dumb. That's stupid.
But
That's
women should not be hitting men because there are
shouldn't.
some women who take advantage of that ideology. They're like,
Right.
so this is what I'm saying.
But this is where we're talking about
that's
toxicity.
But that's not the equal of a man hitting a woman, is what I'm saying. That there's a difference there between you punching a girl in the face and a girl punching or slapping you. There's a difference.
Right.
There.
It depends. It depends.
It. Kyle.
You think no girl can knock you out, bro?
Maybe, but a dude can knock me out a lot easier.
Okay.
All right.
So
The average man punching you is different than average
Men don't know how to
Right.
punch either. I've seen a lot of these fight
It'll be a
videos.
lot worse than a 140-pound girl punching you versus.
Okay, yes. There are
Okay.
physical differences between men and women. Is this what you want to hear? Is that what you're talking about?
So let's build the argument now.
There
So
is no
a
argument.
difference.
There's a physical difference between men and women. Do you think that because of that there should be a difference in who can attack who? What are you arguing for?
I don't think women should hit men,
I
but I don't think a woman hitting a man is as bad as a man hitting
It is.
a
It is
woman.
just as bad because
No, it's not.
yes,
And
it
it's not
is.
treated like that
All
in
right.
society.
well say that.
That's
it's
okay.
not treated
It's
like
not
that.
treated like that.
So you
society.
think it should be?
Yes.
Yes, because nobody should be being violent and putting hands on anybody.
No, but you think that the punishment should be just as severe.
There's very little punishment for domestic violence. Is my point. Like that is.
I
It's
mean,
not.
That's a side problem, right? Because it's a complicated thing.
That's what I'm saying. It's
But what I'm-
complicated,
but-
and this is the other thing that I don't
It's
really.
nuanced
I
and
don't
it's
want to sit. I don't
complicated.
want to get into the like who did what with Quavo and Saweetie. The idea that I'm want to make sure people walk away with is that you don't want to put people on a pedestal because you don't know what they're going through. I don't know what happened before those elevator doors open. I don't know what their relationship was like behind closed doors. I don't know if this was something, if Saweetie was smacking him on a regular, if he was hitting her. I don't know if they pushed each other.
Right, we
I don't
don't
know what
know.
they thought was normal.
We just have those few seconds.
Right. We have that elevator clip and we're all drawing conclusions. And I'm not comfortable drawing conclusions about their whole relationship from that segment. I don't know what pushed her to I don't know what was going on there. I have no idea. What's going on there. I can only judge from that. But what that does show me is that there was turmoil in their relationship.
Toxicity.
There was, in their relationship. And it's not something that we should be
Idolizing.
aspiring to.
Exactly.
That's what the conversation that I'm having. Now, if you want to talk about domestic violence, that's a conversation for men. We got to stop doing that. And more men need to check their boys when they're doing weird stuff. Like, don't be. I can't be friends with somebody.
Jackson right now.
No, I can't be. You want me to be friends with somebody I know is beating their woman because it ain't gonna happen.
No, I agree with you.
So
you should, no matter what she's doing.
So this is what I'm saying. Men need to yes. In this situation, men need to step up and stop letting their friends be weirdos who are beating on women because that is more likely.
Yes.
Statistic wise. Yes, statistic wise. Yes. You love numbers. Look at the numbers.
Because men don't call the police when their woman hits them.
We're not saying that it doesn't happen.
It's not as frequent.
But it's not as frequent.
I don't know if that's true.
It's true.
He has a selective.
Yeah. Selective stats. Selective stats.
You guys know that if Nikita slapped you, you are definitely not calling the police. Stop it.
I mean, I can't even imagine that.
But you definitely aren't calling the police. But if you slap her, she might.
Also, the chance of me actually harming him.
And this is what his point is. This is what his point is.
That's my point.
That's what he's like. Well, if women hit you, it's not the same. But my point is,
it's not either way.
If you do that, it's not about whether or not you're going to harm me physically. Like, you're opening yourself up to attack. In my opinion. If I had it's not toxic, it's real. If I had a daughter, I'd say, hey, listen, don't ever hit a man unless you're ready to freaking fight for real. Right. Like if you hit, and this is how I look at anything. If I go at somebody and I hit someone, I'm fighting. I'm not trying. It's not like a slap and I'm out. If you hit somebody, be ready to fight, and that's across the board.
But don't you think, as a society, it's a good thing that it's in the culture where maybe it doesn't happen all the time, and yes, there's domestic violence, but it's not really acceptable for you to put your hands on a woman, even in retaliation, and I think that's a good thing.
Know what you're saying, and yes, that is a honorable idea. It's not realistic. That's not what's really happening. What's really happening when you're talking about domestic violence, when you look at this, men are putting their hands on women much more frequently, much more fatally, and it's much more damaging to women and families because they also abuse children more frequently physically.
Yes.
So that is a male issue. So if you're talking about double standards like that, the issue was with us again.
Stop it, Kyle. You know women be hitting men.
But he never said that they aren't.
They do that not all the time.
Reported.
We are going in circles here.
Anyway.
Carry on.
But people, listen. Women do put their hands on men. Men put their hands on women, and in either situation, it is wrong.
Right. That's the main
Nobody
thing.
should be putting their hands on anybody. And, if Quavo were a different dude, we would have seen a different outcome in the video. We've seen elevator videos where they didn't go like that.
Okay. So with Jay-Z and Solange, right? Solange was stealing off on Jay-Z. He was just ducking. He didn't hit her.
Right. So it's like, if you say one thing, you have to say the other. It is not right to put your hands on anybody.
And so Ryan is saying that if a girl hits you, you shouldn't hit her back. Yes, I agree with this idea. I'm just saying that women, if you attack a man,
because you don't know. You don't know how he was raised. You don't know what is going to trigger for him. Every man is not going to walk away.
Right. Everybody's not going to walk away. And I don't think that in relationships you should be becoming, if you're at the point where you're having physical altercations, there's something else going on there.
And we don't know if that was the first time.
Right.
We don't know
and
if
this
it
is
happened.
my point. You don't have any idea what's going on there.
Exactly. So we're theorizing and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, what I saw there was that they didn't need to be together anymore. Right. Because as soon as you get to that point,
now, one thing I did want to talk about with this situation,
it only escalates from there.
Is I mentioned that earlier that he bought her a car, and then there was rumors that he repoed it, and I saw a lot of dudes hyping this up, and I don't understand it. I don't understand the celebrating the demise of a relationship or the taking back of gifts. That's just not cool to me. I don't like. It wasn't a healthy situation, obviously, when you look at this. And if you were in it, I understand there's a very expensive purchase. Mm-hmm. I understand why you might need to take that back, even though I don't know. I don't think he did, or I don't know what the deal was going on there.
I have no idea about that.
I just don't understand why dudes be feeling necessary. They're like, right, if I get you something, I'm gonna take it back. Like, I don't understand that whole, like,
it's the flex. It's the power, the power flex. Like, okay, you ain't with me no more.
Listen, I'm gonna tell y'all,
I'm not
dudes,
leaving you on the up.
It is okay to care about people. It's okay to love.
They're like, I'm not leaving you with nothing that's going to leave you up. When I leave you, I want you to be left down.
It's okay to build somebody up and have them go on with their lives. You can end relationships and you can both be better for it. There's ways to handle it maturely. There's ways to not burn all the bridges. That is not the healthiest way to live life. Like, I don't want that happening with any of my business relationships, like anything. That's not how you should be. That's not a good thing to aspire to do. Like, the people who are in my life, I hope if they leave, I hope they leave better for having me have been in their lives. Right. Like, that's the mentality that I want to have. Like, that's how I want to live. I don't want people being like, I don't want celebrating, taking gifts back and thinking like, that's just corny to me. So you think it's simping if you want, but I'd rather build people up, and that's everybody.
And this relationship goals thing, it had me thinking about the Tina Turner documentary. We watched that a couple days ago, and one thing that she said in there that stood out to me was that at the time, everybody thought that her and Ike were this perfect couple.
Imagine thinking Ike and Tina Turner were the perfect couple.
And we weren't there living through that time. Right. But basically what they were saying was nobody knew. Nobody in the public knew. Maybe their close circle knew. The people that worked with them knew. But in public, it was like this perfect couple to the world. Even though now we're looking at the footage, we could see that in Tina's eyes, like,
yeah, she was flinching and stuff.
Yeah,
but like they're doing interviews together and they're doing all the couple stuff. But again, there wasn't social media. There wasn't as much media,
right?
So it was easier to pull off that ruse that they were a happy couple. But they were together for a long time. They had a lot of hits, had a lot of success together. And again, you don't know what's going on, and so the thing is, like, a lot of young people, right? They're looking for something to aspire to.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that. Like, I don't mind looking at things and thinking, I want my relationship to do that. Like, you can look at certain things and take them. Like, you might say, hey, I like how they travel. Hey, I like how.
The thing is the how, though. You have to determine what is the how for you. So you could say, like, I want to travel.
Right.
I want it to look like this. But you have to determine what is a healthy how for you. Because a lot of these situations, the how was not healthy. Right. People were getting hurt severely.
Right. There's a lot of you can glean information. You can base things off of a lot of different things. Like, you could look at, some of Kevin Samuel's videos or even Derrick Jaxn's videos. They weren't always wrong. I didn't like how they delivered the message, but there was messages in there that were cool. You can take away the message, but not put the person on a pedestal. And I think that is an issue that people have where they struggle with, right? Like, they want the messenger to be this,
this savior,
this demigod that they can worship at the altar of and think that everything and that is not healthy for anything, right? Like, as big as of a Kobe Bryant fan as I am, I loved his work ethic. I loved how he played on the court. I love the whole idea of the Mamba mentality and just going the extra mile. I don't know how his personal life was. We all know that he made very public mistakes that he atoned for. I don't want to be Kobe. There's parts of his game that I like. There's parts of his work ethic that I like, and I try to incorporate the things that I think would work for me. And I think it's important that we always remember that everyone's human. We're all human, and we all have flaws, and we're all going to mess up. And to better yourself and to not be let down, just, try to take the inspirational and aspirational things that you like. Like, if you like that a couple works well together, try to figure out how they're doing it and bring that into your life. But you don't have to worship the couple.
Not even necessarily how they're doing it, because how they're doing it might not work for you. Right. Just find out how working together with your spouse,
right,
that feels good for both of y'all, how that's going to work. Because what's working for them and making it look good might not be the thing that works for you. You have to figure out your own blueprint, your own plan, your own framework.
When we were watching the Tina Turner documentary, she mentioned that she mentioned that she never felt loved. Like, not, it wasn't until like,
and that the bad in her life outweighed
60,
the good.
60.
She doesn't feel like she lived a good life.
Yeah, she feels like she hadn't lived a good life despite all the success.
She's 81.
Now I'm talking about when she found her when she found her guy.
Yeah.
I don't know how she was older.
She was definitely older.
She was old. I'm not sure how old she was, but that was way later in life when she finally felt like she had a relationship that brought some love into her life. Like, because she was like abandoned by her parents, didn't have a relationship with them really. She didn't really have the relationship she wanted with her kids because she was working, and she felt like her life was, and she had the relationship with Ike, but that didn't go well, and she didn't have a lot of love in her life. And I think you have to really, a lot of people wanted, they like the story of Tina Turner, they like the success, but you have to understand that just success might not be enough for you. Like, maybe it is for some people. You often hear that, there's something else missing, and you have to figure out how to balance that. You have to figure out what your personal balance is.
Because she basically had success at the cost of everything else.
Right.
And yes, we can look at her and say that's a living legend right now. And her music changed the game, and she inspired so many other musicians and all this stuff.
Part of that too was she was locked into bad business deals, like musically,
right?
Because Ike, when they divorced, Ike took everything but her name, so she had to work. She had to work
scratch
to
ground
pay off.
up.
She had a lot of debt with record labels.
She ended up with the debt. He ended up with the money.
Right. So he did her super dirty, and she had to do all this extra work. So she was working to pay off a lot of debt, and that's part of the reason that she could never take a break and even enjoy the initial success that she had. And so. I understand why she feels that way. When I listen to her talk and I look at her story, but I think that the biggest lesson to me is to just try to remember that you have to find balance. Like,
yeah, the other thing with the documentary, I wanted more of her. Like, I think that they still focused a lot on Ike, and yes, Ike was a big part of her life in terms of the music that she made initially, and then that divorce ruling and how her life, but I wanted to find out more about that relationship with her mother. Where was her father? I want to find out more about what her kids thought about her. I want to find out more about what she was eating and what her routine was and her skincare,
because kept talking about that.
Tina's body at 60, 50, and she's doing these shows and sweating.
She did 230 shows in 18 months. 230 shows
in 18 months, sis. What is crazy. Your diet? Are you
at
vegan?
50 plus? At 50 plus, that like a world tour, 230 shows, 18 months.
But I want to know about that. How did you keep going? What did you do to keep your voice in good shape? Like, were you drinking honey and lemon and rum to keep your voice like smooth? I wanted more of Tina, the details and stuff, and I really wanted to dig into that mother-daughter relationship because I don't know if she really, I didn't get from it that she did therapy necessarily behind that relationship. I don't know.
I think she probably did do something,
but maybe. But that mother-daughter relationship, that to me is the foundation of everything. Not even just that, like her parents abandoning her,
right,
was the foundation of everything, with her relationships and the way that she felt about herself for a long time and the things that she wasn't able to make peace with. Even that interview with her mother. Yeah, her mother didn't know her. Like,
there was an old clip and they asked her mother what was she most proud of, and she was saying that she didn't need nobody to hold the ladder. And when I was watching her say that, and like the way she described her mother, I was just thinking, It brought me back to the whole thing like with black people and the continuous cycles of trauma that we're facing.
Because she said her mom, even though she did stuff for her mom, she bought her house and all this stuff, she still felt like her mom didn't like her. Yeah, she felt like her mom didn't like her, and she felt her mom. She kept saying that her mom didn't think that her daughter was doing that. Like she was like, "Who's helping you do this? Who?" And but that to me, right? That lack of love for her daughter comes from a lack of self-love. Right. When I was looking at it, like, she didn't believe that her offspring could have that level of success. That came from her. Right. Could do so good and have such an impact in the world. And it's easy for me to imagine that because,
you know, she was probably the daughter of, if not slaves, sharecroppers.
Right.
Like they were in the deep South in, you know.
And that's the story that I wanted more of. And I don't know, you know,
maybe they don't know it probably.
Maybe. And you know, that maybe Tina didn't want to dig into that as much.
But how would she know it? Because her mom wasn't around.
Right.
She don't know her mom. And this is what I'm saying. Like the cycles are like so when you're a kid, you don't know why your parents are doing what they're doing.
And you tell yourself all types of stories.
Right.
And those are the stories that stay with you and define you until you're able to deal with them on a serious level. Right. And heal from those stories that you tell yourself, because if nobody's able to correct that narrative, it runs off in your head.
Right.
So, you know, like I felt for her in that moment, especially as someone who I wasn't raised by my mom. I was raised by my grandparents. And, you know, like I know that my mom loves me and all that stuff. But even as a child, my dad wasn't around. You tell yourself, you create a narrative in your head about what is happening,
right?
Especially if nobody is counteracting that narrative and telling you an age appropriate truth,
right?
You know, so I really felt for her, and you know, just her. You could see that she really wanted that affection from her mother, and it made me think about her grandmother and why her mother would treat her that way, and if her mother felt loved by her mother.
Bill Burr told this great joke about that, right? Like he said, like a lot of times your parents just do a little bit better than the last generation. He's like, you know, if your dad whooped you with a belt, his dad was probably whooping him with a chain.
Yes.
And like he's like, well, he had it better than I had it. Yeah. And every generation gets a little bit better. And you know,
that's
I think
so true.
This is super true. But when you look at black people, right? If you go back 4 generations, you're talking about slaves, right? And slaves, like a lot of the stuff that we still do comes from that, right? Like slaves had to beat their kids to keep them in line so that they didn't get killed or sold or, you know, mutilated by, you know, the system of slavery. So the lengths that they had to go to try to make sure that their kids were safe was, and the lack of resources they had to pour into their kids, and probably this just lack of self-worth. Like I can't ever really put into my mind what that must feel like to just have no freedom, no rights, have no self-determination, and you know your life is just being a slave. Like the amount of like, what do you have to give a kid?
I mean, based on where we are now, I think people gave a lot. But the reality of existing in that system and seeing something opposite of what your parents, and this is even true today, right? And as we talk about kids in the hood and people living in poverty and all this stuff, like it's hard. This is why you can't kumbaya yourself out of a lot of shit when you're talking about systemic oppression,
right?
Because it's one thing for you to be sending these positive messages, but and some people may run with that and do well, but also if you are seeing your environment and seeing what's happening and they say, well, I'm hearing this, but what I'm seeing is looking very different from what I'm hearing, from what you're trying to tell me.
That you can actually turn against that.
Right.
That you like that. Stop lying to me about that crap.
So it works for some people. And it's so interesting how some people turn out, you know, like succeeding and all that stuff. And then others
This is why Frederick Douglass is one of my favorite people. I like, you know, there's, I mean, you know, Harriet Tubman too, but you know, like to just have the idea that I don't care what society's telling me. I don't care what y'all told me. I know that I'm more valuable than this. Yeah. And I'm going to live my life like I'm this valuable. I mean, black people still have to do that. We still have to prove our value every day. You just have to believe in yourself and in your own, because people are going to try to devalue just based on that, which is just ridiculous that we still, I mean, it makes sense in history because it hasn't been that long. Like, you know, we just talked about it's only 4 generations since we were there. But it, you know, it's frustrating that's the state of things. You know, you talked about your grandparents a little bit, and I know we're like almost a year away from.
No, it's a year now.
It's a year
from lockdown, because March 16th last year was when everything went
right.
Stay inside.
So I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, like it's been a year of lockdown with COVID, and And at least for me, I'm coming up on a 1-year anniversary of my grandfather's passing as a result of COVID. First, if anybody follows me on social media, you'll see me talking about it ever so often. But I was in New York. We were in New York, and my grandfather kind of got caught up in the first wave of COVID in New York City at the hospital. And it was a mess. It's still traumatic to think about. I've been thinking about it a lot recently since we are coming out on our anniversary, and some of the thoughts I've been having recently about it, because even before COVID was a thing, because I was caretaker for my grandfather, caregiver for him. And we went through a lot together. So I was recently thinking about us coming in at the airport when I was coming back from Barbados, and Customs and Border Patrol stopped us and basically was threatening to deport my grandfather. As soon as we got off the plane, deport my grandfather. And they were going to hold him in a cell. This is an elderly man who had prostate cancer, was in kidney failure. He was blind. And they were like, we're going to put you in a cell until this flight comes back around next week, because we were in Boston. Right. And this flight only came in once a week. And so I had to do a lot of reasoning with them to let them know, we're not trying to bring him here to stay forever or do anything illegal, have him come into the country illegal. We're trying to do things the right way. Here's his 6 months worth of medication. Here's, all his doctor's papers and stuff like that. And he had to travel with all of that. And that was really traumatic because, we're sitting there and I could tell these dudes were just doing this for shits and giggles, literally fucking with us for fun. And it made me think about the fact that as Black people, even when you get to an age where you should be able to rest and feel peace and relaxation, you don't often get that here. And I mean, anywhere in the world, but in America specifically, it's you can't, some people can't retire early. You got to keep working. Or if it's not that, there's still this lack of respect. And to me, it was just this is an elderly person. Right. who can't see, who he's in a wheelchair right now. Right. There was no compassion. People were in the back talking about, one of the dudes that stopped us was in the back talking about going on vacation and where they're moving to and their dog and all this stuff. And it was just whatever, y'all just in here.
I felt like that when I was a kid and my dad was put into a detaining cell for, if you know my dad, he's not someone who curses. He just doesn't curse. He was brought up as a church kid. He's gonna get mad about this. I hope you're watching this clip too. He was a preacher's son, and he doesn't curse. We went to pick up my mom from the airport, and her plane was a little delayed. He had parked illegally, and when we came back out, they're trying to tow the van. Now, he was wearing a hat, had a Million Man March, because we were going from there to the Million Man March. It was the day of the Million Man March. And when he went to the tow truck driver, he was going to pay him cash to get the van off. Now, I will say this too. As a kid, I told you, I'm talking to you, Dad, I told you not to park there as a kid. You didn't listen. But so he parked there. He went to the tow truck driver. The driver's letting it down. A cop came over and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, he paid me. I'm, give him the car back." She said, "No, he's not going." She pointed at his hat, said he's not going. So he's going. He's talking to her. He's like, "Well, where is it going? Where can I get it?" So next thing I know, I'm standing there. And my mom's still not off the plane. Right. We don't know where she is. My I was maybe 6 or 7. My sister was 5. So we're standing there watching my dad go talk to the cop. Next thing I know, 2 other cops come over and they're arresting him. And she claimed that he was cursing at her, threatening her. And my dad, he's a tall dude. He's a big dude. he can be loud, but he's not cursing. And I know
I haven't heard him curse.
Right.
The closest he got to cursing was saying nigga.
Right. And even that's rare.
Right.
And even that's a rare thing. And so, you know, we didn't know at the time, I didn't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I heard him over there, like they were trying to put him in the car, but he was standing up telling them that my kids were here. Like and so a cop came over and put us in the car and we go to the station. So I watched them put him in a holding cell and we're sitting there. And I, as a kid, remember thinking, I can't believe how desensitized these officers were.
Right.
Like it was mostly white men. There was a couple white women. There was one, and the only reason that we didn't, because they were going to put us in DIFUS or something. I don't know. Like they were going to try to put us, like this one Spanish lady came over and asked me what my mom looked like, what her flight was, and luckily I remembered the information. I gave it to her. She went and found my mom, and that's because they didn't care about it. They were talking crazy. They were cursing crazy around my 5-year-old sister. Like they were just acting like we weren't there.
You're funny. My 5-year-old sister. You were 6 or 7.
Yes, but like I'm a big brother. Like my big brother instinct is, how y'all talking like this around my sister? Like why y'all acting like there's no kids here? Like they just don't care.
Yeah, they don't see humanity.
Right,
of
and
black people.
I don't understand that. Right, like if I saw a kid in that situation, and you know, like it was a person of color. It was like, you know, this Latina cop saw that. She's like, "What's going on here? I have to do so." She luckily stepped in and helped out. But who knows what would have happened, right? So, you know, black people aren't seen as human in so many instances.
Yeah,
and that doesn't change. It doesn't change when you're a kid. It doesn't change when you're elderly. Like the system just don't see you as black, and it's just wild. This is a wild
human
thing. Yeah, well, they see you as black. They don't see you as human.
Yeah, they don't see you as human. Yeah, and it's just been very, because, you know, like I think back on my, like I said, my grandparents raised me, and I think back on their life. And one thing I remember with my grandmother a lot, that I vowed that I would live my life in a certain way, especially being able to rest, like incorporate rest into my life more, because my grandmother did not believe in resting. Like she believed in grinding until she could not any longer. You know, like she would have to feel unwell for her to sit down and take a break from doing whatever she was doing. And and what I love, her determination and her tenacity and her, you know, stick-to-itiveness with getting stuff done. I also saw the repercussions, and health-wise as well, of not being able to really incorporate, like believe in just pausing and resting to heal, restore yourself and all that. And just see how my grandfather, you know, how the last year of his life, you know, he was struggling with kidney issues, and we finally got him stabilized with care, and prostate cancer, we had that like under control or whatever. And then he came here and everything just went to shit, right? Like, and he had a good few months before, you know, COVID hit and whatever. But just like remembering how
I was glad I got to meet him a couple times.
Yeah.
He liked me, I think.
He did. And just remembering like how things unfolded, like at the hospital, and not being able to, like, just walking in there and witnessing what was going on. And this was, I don't want to say the hospital name, but it was definitely in my hood in New York City, north of 125th Street. And I could see how things were progressing. Right. And I knew that things were going to get bad, and that the hospital wasn't doing enough and people weren't taking it seriously enough. I was seeing people show up to dialysis, and I remember sitting outside the door waiting on the doctor because I couldn't go in. So I had to let my grandfather go in. And I was waiting on the doctor because by this time my grandfather had a really high fever. We couldn't figure out if it was from dialysis, if he had a cold, what was it from? He had a cough as well. And this dude, probably in like his 20s, came to go in for dialysis, and he had a temperature over 100. Right. And he didn't have a mask on because they weren't really mandating masks at that time. Because I remember they were also saying like, well, you shouldn't we got to save the masks for the healthcare workers, and people don't need masks. Don't buy them up or whatever. So he didn't have a mask on, and they scanned his forehead, and his temperature was above 100, and they were like, well, you can't come in for dialysis. And when I saw that, I said to myself, you guys just started scanning for temperatures. So I know that there's already been somebody in there with COVID. And once they came back and said that my grandfather didn't have an infection from dialysis, and I went in to pick him up that evening, I even have video on my phone. Like, my grandfather was breathing like right in his abdomen and stuff, which is when people not getting breath in their chest or their lungs, they start, you see the abdomen working a lot. And he was struggling to talk, struggling to breathe. And it just went downhill from there. And, we had to make, eventually, probably a week later, we had to make the decision, because he had been hospitalized twice before that.
Right.
And we had to make the decision whether to take him back to hospital. And he kept pleading with us that he didn't want to go back in there, because he was in there when COVID started, and they started, they stopped people from going to see people. And they hadn't told him that they were preventing, that they weren't allowing visitors. Right. So he was in there for until we could get a hold of him, a few days before we could communicate with him and let him know that we hadn't abandoned him in the hospital.
Right.
So it was just all this trauma that he went through at the end
just
of
for the
his
viewers
life.
out there, you have to remember that her grandfather was blind as well.
Right.
So he couldn't
pick up the phone and dial a number to get to us. He didn't even know where the phone is.
Right.
In the hospital. And they made so many mistakes in there with putting people in there that had COVID in rooms, 6-person rooms, and then they have to change the room by then.
Yeah, it was a very stressful time.
Yeah, and I just thinking about...
It feels like more than a year ago, actually.
Yeah, but it's been a year. And just thinking about the end of his life and the trauma that he went through, and it's just sad. And
yeah, I know that was in a lot of ways that led to what you're doing now, though.
Yes. It did, because
you needed a way, because you didn't mention that you lost your grandmother the year before that.
The year before that. Yeah, I lost my grandmother a year and probably 2 months before that.
Right.
And that was a hard experience as well, because that was the first close person to me that I'd ever lost. And the interesting, I do meditation now, and I focus on grief a lot, because for me, the thing I've learned about grief is that it's never the same. Right. You can lose one person, lose another. You're not going to feel the same in that grief. And even with COVID, we lost a lot of people. And then even after COVID, I lost my uncle.
Right.
And he had stage 4 cancer. And that was another experience in itself, because, I went to help care for him in his last days. And that was probably, every time I've said in the past few years, this is the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. Something else has happened where I'm right. That wasn't that hard. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah, you had a rough couple of months there.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to, my grandfather was a person that enjoyed life. He was a person that he never stopped trying. And just to come from a small island, and he came of age in a time where there was a lot of poverty in Barbados. People my mother will always talk about not having shoes to go to school and stuff like that. That's what my grandfather came from, a lot of trauma as well. He was an orphan at a young age, and for him and my grandmother to come from what they did and to raise their kids and other people's kids, because they also took care of other people's kids in the poverty that they were in.
Right.
And my grandfather was a person that, when it was going through their stuff after my grandmother passed away, I could see all these applications that my grandfather put in, because he loved to travel, and he never gave up on that dream. So he would apply for jobs in other countries and stuff like that. And at the time, that was really the only way that people were making money. You had to leave to go find
right.
work. So he did migrant work. He picked fruit in Florida. He went to Ascension Island and helped establish, like, they had like an electrical plant and stuff there.
Right.
And, you know, did masonry work there and stuff like that. And, you know, I have pictures from him doing those things. And he was really happy traveling. So, you know, he was full of life. He always had jokes. he was just funny. I respected my grandparents. I still do, even in the afterlife, and I appreciate everything that they've done for me, and tons of other people who would have been touched by them. And, you know, my grandfather, even with him having to, I feel that the thing that gets me is that I feel like my grandfather suffered unnecessarily in his last months of life. And, you know, that's a feeling that I'm still grappling with. I'm sure other people can relate to it, especially with COVID, where you don't get to go into the hospital. You don't get to visit. And I know now, like, some people, like, they have the iPads and stuff that they allow you to see your relative. Right. But in the beginning, they weren't doing all that, especially in New York City.
It was very early, and there was a lot going on there.
You couldn't do that, and they were so overwhelmed, you know, so... if anybody that has experienced this, my sympathy and condolences go out to you as well. And I hope that you are moving through it and able to heal and find some light at the end of the tunnel, and release yourself from any guilt that you may feel around what you were and weren't able to do for your loved one in their last days. Because, you know, there's a lot we didn't have control over. And
yeah, it's been a crazy time. It's been, you know, one of the things I think that you mentioned a lot with the COVID thing is sometimes people didn't lose people, but they lost a lot of normalcy.
Yes.
Like, you know, they can be grieving what they thought the year was going to be, or what their plans were, or, you know, a lot of just things that they thought they were going to be doing had to change due to, you know, this global pandemic.
People lost jobs, people lost housing. Then you had, you know, people had.
There's a lot of uncertainty, you know, with that. A lot of people weren't accustomed to dealing with, which is difficult to live with when you're, you know, you have no idea what's going to happen next. People get anxious, and anxiety is through the roof for a lot of people.
Yeah.
The one thing that, you know, because I know that we've talked about it a little bit, is I know that you wish that your grandparents could have, you know, seen you pregnant and met their great grandbaby. Yeah. But I also say that there probably wouldn't be, you know, you probably wouldn't be pregnant without.
Yeah,
without
and that's the irony of life, right? Sometimes and it hurt to lose the people that I lost, but also on the other side of those losses, it opened up space in my life. And I think when you're dealing with losing a loved one and grieving and stuff like that, the loss can be so heavy and intense. And if you stay there, you don't always see the opportunity on the other side to create, you know, and define yourself, or create a life that you want, or make changes, or, you know, step into something new. So the opportunity is there, but you have to do the work to get through it, to see that it's there. It's not just going to be an automatic thing, because if you know, and grieving takes time, and it looks different for different people, but we still have to live because we're still here. And they'd want us to, at least I know my grandfather would want me to live a full life and do something great with my life, because he always believed in me and believed in what I could do. And he always encouraged me to go to school and do something major, you know, like, so yeah, I think.
I always ask you what you think your grandparents would have thought of your music.
I think my grandfather would have liked it.
You know, Skyns. I think, you know, so much has happened in this 1 year.
Yeah.
It's been so much.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Like, when you said that was last year, I was like, that feels like 2-3 years.
Time is.
Because all that happened. So
now.
From my perspective, I was not there, but I was on the phone with her all the time. All that happened. So then I knew she needed some recovery. So I was like, come down.
Come to South Jersey.
Come to South Jersey. Get out of the city, where because there was a big difference in what was happening in New York when COVID was hitting, and in South Jersey. Like
yes.
there was, everything was different, but like New York was the
energy
crazy.
in New York for me. Even when I go back now, the energy for me causes me anxiety,
right.
and my friends can attest to this. I never thought that there would be a time before it was like a retirement age where I'd be like, I have to get out of New York City. But COVID did that. My experience with COVID did that. Because I know there's some people who's like, this is great. Rent is cheap now, whatever. Right. But I can just, when I get into New York City, come off West Side Highway on 125th and then get into Harlem. The energy for me,
every time I drive her, she's like, oh my God. Oh, get out of the street. Oh, what are you guys doing over there? And I'm like, this is New York. It's just regular New York.
It's regular New York. But what also happened with COVID was that the behavior of people just thinking about themselves and not thinking about other people. And it was little things, but it magnified across the country in the behavior. People was like, well, I don't care. I'm not going to wear a mask or whatever the case may be and stuff like that. But little things in New York is like, where y'all, when they said, okay, stay 6 feet apart. And I would drive through Harlem and all the niggas be outside on the stoop and they be in each other's faces, dapping it up and laughing and kikiing and whatever. And mostly it was men outside.
Yes.
And COVID was taking men disproportionately at that time, black men. So, it was that, and I was like, all right, I am over this. I need a break. And it took me, I came down here and it took me some time. Like I would say that I was an emotional mess for a few months, the entire summer.
I would,
you wouldn't say an emotional mess, but I would, because that's what it felt like inside.
But it made sense. Like what you just went through was super traumatic. And this is the other thing, right? So we made Saturday Night Chakra then.
Yes.
Like this is, so you started you started exploring the idea of meditation. You started finding this new path. We decided we wanted to make music. Mm-hmm. We made the Skyns project. Mm-hmm. We made a baby.
That's recent.
What? It was in the fall.
Last year.
Yeah, it's last year. That's what I'm saying.
So much.
This is what I'm saying. It's so much. Now we're doing, we're doing a podcast. Like we're like so much transpired.
Yeah.
In like what it doesn't feel like it's a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Like this is what I'm saying. When you said it was last year, I'm shocked. Like, oh shoot, look how much stuff we did.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. You're right.
Right.
You're right.
So I know you were recovering, but you hopped, you maneuvered pretty quickly. You pivoted and created this. You're still creating it, but you created this lane where you're helping. You turned your grief into a way to help people. You're doing meditation. You're working with the Nalaverse. You're expanding it to communities that need it. You're helping your family a lot. Like I don't know if you think about that. I know you think that they come, to your meditations just to support you, but I think that your family has been through a lot of trauma and don't know, no one, black people aren't taught how to deal with that. And I feel like this is a way, like, you're helping them, give them a tool to help them with that. So,
I mean, that's the way to look at it. I still need y'all to come to the meditation to support, family or no family.
Tell them where to support.
Every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. PST. If you're in the Caribbean, it's 7 p.m. right now because we're back on the same time. At the Nalaverse, Nala from The Lion King.
Nala,
Nala, Nala, verse, as in a song.com. And you can see me there every Tuesday at 7 p.m. and we meditate.
So before we get out of here, we have one more thing we got to talk about.
What is that?
I have no smooth transition. But there was a guy who slid down on the pole to twerk on the devil. Lil Nas X had
that booty popping.
Had the Christians going crazy with them shoes.
I am, it's been such a thing to watch the reaction to Lil Nas X because like some people have already pointed out, there is so much actual evil going on in the world. Right? Like at the hands of the state, the system.
Right.
You know, like, and people aren't at all bothered by that. But one little black boy who identifies as homosexual,
right,
slides down a pole, twerks on the devil, pops the devil's neck, as we were saying in Beijing, poppy neck, and then puts the horns on, and everybody is disturbed. And
I'm always interested in the things that move culture, right? You know, Ryan talks about this a lot. He talks about how with Trump, the kids in cages at the border, the overpacked.
They're still in the cages, by the way.
The overpacked thing under the Trump administration was this huge story. And now, I'm not saying it's not a story. I saw NBC covering it, but it is less centered in the news. It's not as focused. It's still happening. It's still an issue, but for some reason, that's no longer the main focus. I say that to say this. People all the time say they care about the kids. Like everything is about the kids. Cardi and Meg don't dance like that because the kids are watching. Lil Nas X, the kids love you. But when the stuff that actually is hurting, like these, like whether if you got these kids out tomorrow, if all of them were out tomorrow, they are all traumatized from this experience. Their lives will never be the same based on this experience.
Right. Yeah.
Now the people, let's make it less dramatic than that, right? This is a conversation I was having with my.
How can you make it less dramatic when you had all those fabulous?
Well, we're gonna get into the costumes and everything, but I'm talking about people get upset with Lil Nas X. They say he has a responsibility to his fans, and that's parents' job, right? So when I say that to people, they're like, "Yes, but what about the parents that aren't there? What about the parents that they have to work in there?" Now this is another that. Why aren't you more upset about that?
Ryan is triggered because the last conversation we had about Sesame Street. I know that he was.
No, I don't think. Actually, I think you would agree with this. It is parents' job to raise a kid, and people should be more upset with parents not being able to. Why aren't they paid a wage?
Right. So they don't have to work three jobs.
They don't have to work three jobs
to support themselves.
Right. Why aren't they able to schedule their lives so that they can take care of their kids, or why do parents have to rely on, entertainment to raise their kids? Like, yes, this happens. I know that this is a thing that happens, but shouldn't you be more upset about that than what the entertainers are doing? Like, this is my point. Like, if you want to talk about the kids, if you want to be for the kids, then be for the kids.
But it's the same thing as like, Republicans are pro-life.
Right. They say they're pro-life, but they don't care if you buy all the guns. They don't care about no mass shootings. There's a mass shooting every week.
Happening at school.
It's very specific. Right. They just don't want you to have abortions. That does not mean pro-life.
Right.
And this is the thing. These people aren't for the kids. They're not worried about Lil Nas X fan base. They're upset because he's gay. They're upset because he identifies as gay. The imagery was gay and black.
Because people have pointed out that there have been like white rock groups and even other artists. Apparently Billie Eilish had is that how you say her name?
Yes, Billie Eilish. But
had a whole video with like.
We grew up on South Park. If you remember South Park, Saddam Hussein was sleeping with the devil. Like there's been stop acting like no one's ever made art.
Right.
All your depictions of the devil came from artwork. Like the idea you have in your head. If I say Lucifer, whatever you think in your head, you've seen that somewhere.
Right.
Like someone made that up. like it's just art.
Christianity made that up.
Yes, but I'm saying like even the image of it. So like stop saying that you can't make art around this idea. You can't make imagery around this idea. It's just imagery.
I loved it though, because if you really look at the symbolism of it, and I'm not someone that is very deep. I would say I'm surface level in the occult a little bit. Like there are people that I know or follow on Instagram and stuff like that, who really delve into symbolism. And but if you just look at it from the context of, okay, Lil Nas X is a gay black man, pretty young. He comes from Gen Z.
Right.
They've been raised on the internet. And if you're gay and black, a lot of the narrative around your identity as that has been about sin, has been about going to hell, has been about not being accepted, just being marginalized as gay because you're black, and then in the black community because you're gay.
Right.
So if he's basically turning the narrative on his head, so this is what you want me to be,
This is what
I'll be that.
Right.
I'm taking back the narrative. So here I am. I am the devil that you're making me out to be.
Right. That's the whole purpose of the video.
Right.
That's what y'all said. Y'all wanted me to do. And this is what he said this. Like, he's been trolling crazy. He's been on TikTok saying it. He's been on Twitter saying it. I think it is brilliant marketing, you know, because at the end of the day, it's all marketing. He's an artist.
Everybody's talking about it everywhere.
Talking about it. So let's get it. Like, if you haven't seen the video, you know, there's a lot of biblical imagery in there. About, you know,
there's a kiss in the Garden of Eden,
and
there's Lucifer's fall. There's
the fall of the angel, and the casting of the first
before
stone.
He was, anyhow, there's his fall into hell,
right?
And
yeah, I think it was a creative video. I mean, it's, you know, I'm not the target demographic. I think it was well done. It was interesting, you know. He got the people going, you know.
And you know, even if you aren't gay, and you look at it as a black person, you should still be able to identify with, okay, this is a persecution that I am facing at the hands of society or whatever, and all this stuff.
Especially black men, especially. We don't identify with gayness for, you know, socially, right? Like, there is a stigma for, like, you almost can't even stand up for gay black people as a black man, because they're like, well, what are you, gay?
Right.
Like, it's ridiculous. You know, I don't understand it. You know, your sexual preference does not determine your worth. You should be able to love whoever you want to love. You should be able to, you know, that. And to condemn people because of that, it's something. So the thing with black gay men specifically, they're getting it from all angles.
But also, Christians love to be selective about their condemnation as well.
Right.
Because this is why I talked, I think it was the first episode, about this full conservatism that exists in Caribbean society, because we're so heavily religious. But when it comes to Christianity, there are things that Christians are willing to turn a blind eye to until the gays come out. Okay? Right. And there's very few things trigger vitriol and trigger protests. I mean, even in Barbados, the thing that will bring Christians to march in the street is LGBT issues and LGBT rights.
Right.
Right? So it's like, this selective outrage, when you should be outraged about the abuse that is going on in the church. You should be outraged about the infidelity that goes on in the church. Pastors and church leaders having families with their congregation
I feel
members. You should be outraged about poverty in your community. You should be outraged that people are going hungry and there's so much food waste. You should be outraged that there's homeless people and so many empty houses, living spaces.
I don't like to bash religions because they have potential. A lot of people need them. But at the same time, they're so dangerous because they lead people to not... They lead to groupthink. It's the original groupthink, where you start to let go of all reason and just believe anything, and that is dangerous. When it comes specifically to Christianity, there's so much hypocrisy as black people in and you can believe Christianity. You can, if that's what helps you, then great. I grew up Christian. All my family is Christian. I don't have any beef with them. But at the same time, I don't understand why everything else is so negative, right? Like, so I put out a series called Voodoo Man. When I said that, everyone's like, yo, what are you doing? You believe in the devil? And it's like, you have no idea of your history. You have no idea of the history of religion of the world.
Called voodoo. They said they were trying to get informed about the enemy today, and I was like, the enemy?
Yeah, it's like,
voodoo?
how is that the enemy? That just shows the lack of historical reference. And the reason I called it Voodoo Man was just because of that point. Because most American black people were taken from the Western coast.
Yes.
And the
Also in
dominant
speaking Caribbean, yes.
The dominant religion of that place was Vodou. So voodoo was our original religion for the most part. Like, did Christianity exist in Africa? Yes, it did. So did Islam. They existed in the continent. The continent is huge. That was not the dominant religion of where most slaves were taken from. But just like, Vodou, it was transformed. In Haiti, it became something else. In New Orleans, it became something else.
Voodoo, right? Mm-hmm.
It became like there's different types of voodoo, and it also became demonized in Western cultures.
Yes.
If you go into the history of Haiti, it was the voodoo spirituality that they hid within because you're only allowed to practice Christianity under slavery,
right.
Which is another aspect
in
of
Haiti
it.
and a lot of other, and Cuba and places like that, a
Right.
lot of you're talking about Santeria
Right,
and other
Santeria.
things. A lot of it is syncretized with Catholicism.
Right.
So your
But
saints. And
the reason that they did that, right, was because that was the only thing that they were really
Yes.
allowed to practice, because the other stuff was scary to white people. White people they
had
didn't
to hide it.
They were
They had to
scared of it. They
conceal
didn't
it.
want you to do it. And so they started hiding it within the Christianity. And as in Haiti specifically, as they became bolder and they started practicing their own original practices, they revolted. And that scared the colonizing culture so much that they started writing books about the black nation and the heinous acts that is voodoo. And now black people in America are afraid of voodoo.
I think because in the past few years, there's been like a number of articles and stuff like that talking about specifically like black women getting back to African traditional religions and practicing and stuff like that. And so I think there is like this interest that is being regenerated in our original.
Part of that is the internet, right? Like the internet gives you access to information that we never had before.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's amazing to me, right? That like when I think about in Africa, they practice Vodou. Like it was not written down. There's no written text. It was oral tradition, and these traditions were passed down. And even through slavery, though it was changed, it still survived in a lot of ways. Like that to me is the same story of black people, right? Like
everywhere.
Like I'm much lighter skinned, and I have curly hair, and that is the story of my ancestors surviving. Mm-hmm. Like I'm changed, but I'm still from that place. And I connect with that ideology so much. So it makes me so angry when I hear people talking about voodoo as the enemy. And or saying that it is demonic or somehow evil. It's just your lack of understanding. And just because you don't understand something doesn't make it evil.
Right.
It doesn't, like, that doesn't mean it's wrong or evil. That means you don't believe. Like, I'm not saying I don't practice voodoo. That's not what I do. I respect it. I respect those who take it very seriously. I respect most religions. I think that in my mind, most religions are just guidelines for how you should live your life. Like people take it way further, but it's more like, hey, here's some stories about how you should be a good person.
Principles of
life. Like when I learned about Greek mythology in school, I was like, what's the difference between this and the Bible? Like what? Like what's the difference?
Yeah, but if you learn, the interesting thing is that these are stories that have been passed down for ages.
Right.
Even the creation story was
The
passed.
creation stories are
you guys
shared.
from as Gilgamesh.
Yeah,
like,
Epic
you know?
of Gilgamesh, like the Egyptian gods, like
Yes.
the the Roman gods were borrowed from. Like they're all coming from a similar lineage. Like they all share these same stories. And funny enough, some of the African religions are the most original. We don't know a lot about them here, but if you do some research, they have some really original ideas about creation, much like the Native Americans. Like they have their own God ideas. Every culture had these ideas.
And
what makes you think that one is right?
Ones are really rooted in being connected to nature and the environment and protecting nature and environment, because that is how God and spirit and life is manifest.
Funny enough, so we're recording this the weekend before Easter.
Yes.
And Easter, right? A lot of people celebrate this as the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Easter is a Viking pagan ideology. Like
there's also Egyptian precedent for it as well, for the celebration.
Right. Like the way that
there's a goddess of fertility that people celebrate.
So everything's all mixed up. And if you really get into it, it's, it's not that heavy. Like, I'm not bothered by it because I don't find it to be upsetting if people have a North Star, if they have a compass, if they use this as their compass and they say, hey, this is what helps me get through life. And this is what helps me find purpose and be a better person. Great. That is great. I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking the connection that you find or your personal relationship with your God. I want you to do what is best for you. But when you start thinking that your God is the only one,
right,
or the only way to live, and you start judging everybody else, when you start saying, I don't want to see nobody make a music video with the devil in it. I'm like, why? Why not? I just, that to me is weird. Also, he put out sneakers. He put out them mischief sneakers.
He didn't actually put out the sneakers.
He did some kind of promo with them or something.
Right. So from what I understand, I could be wrong, but from what they were making the sneakers and he came out for the promo to help push the product or whatever. And they have that one drop of blood in there and whatever the case may be. And now Nike's suing them because the company.
Right.
Mischief.
They're suing Mischief. So Mischief with no vowels. Is a shoe customizer, Nike shoe customizer. and they did the, I don't know, they're called the Air Satans. I don't know. I don't know what they're called. I don't know what they're actually called, but if it's not, it should have been Air Satan. But so they did those with the one drop of blood, and they sold like 666, and they're using all of the westernized
satanic symbolism.
Yeah, the satanic symbolism. But funny enough, they also put out a Jesus shoe with holy water in it, and they're using the cross and all that. They're just selling.
Right.
It's all business. And this is my point. Like, people take things heavier. Everyone was so mad about these shoes.
And now Nike's forced to sue.
And Nike, because it's defamation. Because people were boycotting Nike,
thinking that they approved the shoe,
thinking that this was a Nike shoe.
And it's interesting because some lawyers that I follow and stuff, they're following it heavy. They don't think that it will have any implications in terms of Nike shoe customizers, because as a business in itself, that Nike usually approves because it doesn't affect the Nike brand in a negative way.
Right. This affected them in a negative way.
Specifically does. And it was
crazy.
accelerated because of Lil Nas X visibility and fame and all that stuff.
And people get so caught up with their Christianity. They're like, yo, you can't buy no Nike selling Satan shoes. I'm boycotting them. Like, what?
I mean, if you want to boycott Nike, we know you're not going to throw away all your Air Force Ones and your Jordans.
Again, and what I'm going to say it. If you wanted to boycott Nike, there's other reasons to do it.
Yes.
Like that's not the one.
Yeah.
If you care about the kids, you care about child labor.
There's a reason.
But no, you don't care about that. You care about these 600.
The one drop of blood in the shoe.
666 pairs of shoes that were customized. That's what makes you want to boycott them. That they have nothing to do with it.
From just a spiritual point of view, and the reading and the education that I'm not walking around with nobody else's blood on my feet. okay, in the bottom of my shoe. No. And who knows. No, that's not what we're doing. That is not what we're doing unless we have intended to do that. And there are reasons that we're doing that.
She tells me all the time she's a witch. I'm putting it out there. So.
No, you're going to really have them coming for me.
I don't know if it's real or not, but that's what she says. You know, I believe her. She's from Barbados. So I'm just like, all right. She has an accent when she says it.
Me being from Barbados has nothing to do with it.
No, it's the accent to me, from my perspective, it makes it believable. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Tap into your personal power. And you make a practice of that. And you're good to go. I'm not going to sit here and act like I am freaking, what's her name from WandaVision?
Scarlet Witch.
What was her name?
Wanda?
Not Wanda. The other one that was sitting there.
I don't know what the other chick was.
Anyhow, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm that
Ryan, what's our time?
2 hours.
All right, well.
Is it really?
2 hours.
Yes, I put my hand up an hour ago.
I can't see
we
you behind the
didn't
light.
see you.
That's behind my light. I can't see that.
I didn't see you either. I'm sorry.
You got to put the other hand up.
Well, that's 2 hours of podcasting. And
you said you want to do an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Went over.
Yeah. Let's cut it down next time.
Well, good luck. No, next time. So next episode we'll have a guest. We're planning on having a guest. Yeah. You know, we're as I've said before, we're going to be talking music, relationships, all type of stuff. We're going to bring in actually a couple. One of the people is a musician. The other one is his business partner and things. So there's a lot of shared similarities in our dynamic. Yeah. So, you know, we're going to be talking
And if you are in the South Jersey, Philly area, you're an artist, you're a musician, you know, you got stuff popping or not, you have opinions on things or whatever, and you
stuff popping or not
or not,
if you're not popping,
you might not be doing something, but you know, like you might not be doing something just this minute. You might be, you know, in a quiet season or whatever, and you know, want to have a little conversation. I think you should hit us up. You know, just
that stuff popping or not. I don't care if you popping or not. Hit me up.
Skyns Music.
Yes, follow us at Skyns Music. Send us a DM. You know, we are open to having guests. We are open to having conversations. We want to, you know, hear you guys' opinions and talk to you guys. We want to actually create a platform for artists and entrepreneurs and talk about, you know, your perspective on the entertainment industry, your perspective on, you know, we can talk about relationships too. I'm sure we're going to do that with the next couple of guests we have are both couples who are in music. So I know we're going to be talking about some relationship stuff
so
with
we
them.
can get them locked in for sure.
As well. Well, one is, the next week is the next time we're doing this is definitely locked in.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
So yeah, make sure you follow us, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. On YouTube,
follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Make sure you go to Spotify. Hit that follow button. Listen to our latest EP.
Yeah. Oh, we just got
video.
We just got over 20,000 on our EP
streams
on Spotify.
Yay for us!
I don't know the Apple, but Apple's doing well. That's all the Apple streams. I think is Astro. Astro be running up them numbers. That's my nephew. He be in his car.
That song in his little Mercedes. When he goes for drives.
He's 9 months. He's old. That's my guy. But yeah, so
yeah, definitely check us out and follow us on social media as well. We try to go live. We're going to make an effort to go live in the weeks off from the podcast.
Yes.
Let's see how that works next week because I won't be here.
We're gonna go live We're gonna go live on Monday before you leave.
But no, we could do it remotely, half and half, split screen.
Yeah, but then we can't have on guests, and you know we got to bring Ryan in. Shout out to Ryan. Ryan got the bread podcast.
Ryan got the bread.
Make sure you check that out. I produced that show for him. He talks real estate, entrepreneurship, black ownership. And his second hour, which is going to be on Patreon, gets wildly lit, where he talks about his crazy ideas on relationships.
You have
to subscribe
to his Patreon,
to his show
please.
And his Patreon, so you can.
Because that second hour is spicy.
Second hour is the drama you need in your life. That is and it's only going to get worse from here. I feel like it's turning up. I feel like this season is about to turn up. I feel like he's
Lady Two Titties. Yes, let's go.
He's been unleashed. He was in here earlier talking about how his skincare routine is getting lit. He's getting fit. He's losing weight. He's buying new outfits.
You know, ladies love some good skin.
He's out here trying to be a hot boy.
And speaking of good skin, just want to shout out my girl
it's
ETL
your
over at
sponsors.
Smell Good Spa. Smellgoodspa.com. That's where I get most of my body products. I love body butter and I love to be moisturized, as you know. I love their after bath oil, their Lush body butter.
Smells great.
They make great skincare as well. She's getting into. So you can definitely go check out smellgoodspa.com. Follow her on Instagram at smellgoodslady. And if you use the code LND, that's L as in Lanamra, N as in Nikita, D as in delightful. 15. You'll get 15% off your purchase.
LND 15.
Yes. So check it out. Hi, ETL.
So yeah, I don't. Oh wait, I do. Hustle Sauce. My boy Kev not here. We still gonna plug it. Give my boy Kevo's Hustle Sauce.
Yes, you see him with the Elitism
I do
shirt
that
on.
the
And
Elitism
also
shirt.
go to whoisbianca.com
Right.
to get your 1111 gear. That's
Yeah,
her
get that-
latest
get that
project.
merch.
Listen to that as well.
Yeah.
Follow Who is Bianca on Instagram.
Yep. I think that's about it.
That's it.
We'll see y'all next time.
Yeah. Peace.